Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at absolute values. So this function here is called the absolute value function. The absolute value of x is the square root of x squared. That actually sounds a bit more complicated than it actually is. The absolute value of a number is just its distance along the number line from 0. So the absolute value of 2 is just the distance from 0 to 2. So absolute value of 2 is 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is the distance from 0 to negative 2. Well, this distance is still 2. So basically what happens when you're taking absolute values, if it's a negative, you write a positive answer, same number with a positive sign. If you take the absolute value of a positive, you don't change the number. So absolute value of 3 is 3. Absolute value of negative 3 is also 3. Absolute values here are never negative. They're always greater than or equal to 0. So let's go ahead and solve some equations with absolute values. So let's look at this one here. So first thing I want to do is get the absolute value function by itself. So I'm going to undo this plus 4, this positive 4, by subtracting 4. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I'm left with minus absolute value of x minus 5 is 2 minus 4. Now I can change the sign of the left-hand side of the equation as long as I do the same to the right-hand side. You can do whatever you want to one side of the equation as long as you do the same to the other. So I've got absolute value of x minus 5 is equal to positive 2. Now here's the problem. We don't know about what's inside the absolute value function. It could be positive or negative. What we can actually do to be sure is we can square this, because when you square something, we know it's absolutely going to be positive. So x minus 5 squared is what I get on the left-hand side. And if I square the left-hand side, I must also square the right-hand side. So you know how to solve this. This is just a quadratic equation. Whenever we have quadratic equations, we need to get one side equal to 0. So I'll subtract 4 from both sides. Now we can use difference of two squares. And difference of two squares works like this. You square root the first thing. So square root of x minus 5 squared is just x minus 5. You square root the second thing. One bracket gets a plus, one gets a minus. So the first bracket, negative 5 plus 2. Second bracket is negative 5 minus 2. So we have two solutions from the null factor law. Either the first bracket equals 0, meaning x equals 3, or the second bracket equals 0, meaning x equals 7. Both of these are valid solutions to this equation. So there are two solutions here because what's inside here, x minus 5, could have been 2 or negative 2. All right, let's now look at this one here, which is a little harder. So once again, because we're not sure whether what's inside these brackets is positive or negative, we're going to square this. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine this, 2x plus 1 minus x minus 1. And we'll square that. We can square one side of the equation as long as we square the other side. So collecting like terms here, 2x minus x is x. Then I have 1 subtract a negative 1, I get positive 2. And once again, I need to subtract 9 because I need to have one side of the equation equal to 0. So I get x plus 2 squared minus 9 equals 0. Using difference of two squares, we're going to square root the first. We're going to square root the second. 1 gets a plus, 1 gets a minus. So I have x plus 5. And then x minus 1 equals 0. So using the null factor law, either the first bracket equals 0 or the second bracket equals 0. So I'll just let you know that this method of squaring to solve absolute value equations doesn't always work, but it'll work for all the questions we do because this is about practicing our quadratic equations. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.